Stack or a fat trade paperback, flock into the
I am joined by the amazing Allison O'Toole, Dan Price, Andre Owen, Fred Kennedy,
Chip Zdarsky. Chip, thanks for coming.
What's up, folks? I'm your host, Conrad, on Wednesday Night Reviews, and tonight I am joined by the amazing Cecil Castellucci. Cecil, thanks for taking the time.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Oh, I'm very excited. This has been about a year in the making. But yes, we are at it, and I think we've got some fun questions for you, some fun stuff to talk about. But just to start with, the same as I start with everybody, for the folks out there who have never heard your name or ever seen your face, who is Cecil?
Well, I'm Cecil Castellucci. I'm a writer. I write comic books. I did The Plain Janes with Jim Rugg. I did Female Furies with Adriana Mello. I did Shade the Changing Girl with Marley Zarconi. I've done Disney princesses. I've done Critical Role. I've done some Star Wars hyperspace. I've done Batgirl for almost 2 years. Just lots of licensed stuff, lots of my own creator-owned stuff. Soupy Leaves Home with Jose Piamenta. Shifting Earth with Flavia Biondi. Just the breadth, like from YA to adult science fiction. I'm also a novelist. I write novels as well. Boy Proof was my first novel, and Don't Cosplay with My Heart was my last novel. I also write librettos for operas, where I try to combine comics and opera together in the 3 past projects that I've done so doing that. I'm really interested in mixing comics with other art forms. I am a teacher, a guest faculty at the graphic storytelling program at the animation workshop in Viborg, Denmark, where I've been guest faculty there for, I think this is my 9th year. So pretty exciting. I love telling stories. I'm an artiste at large.
Perfect. And you know what? You've just about touched on everything that I sort of kind of came across when I was doing research that I found interesting about you, and that I wanted to touch base on. So just to start with, I'm going to throw a quote at you from yourself with a follow-up question.
Okay.
So the quote is, when I fell hard, I fell true, and I fell in love. I've said it before, and I'll say it again. I was born on the day that I saw Star Wars. What I wanted to know was, what about Star Wars, whether it was a scene, the event of it, the experience of it, maybe the fact that it was in a theater and you got to see it with a group of people. What is it about Star Wars that captured your desire to tell stories?
I mean, I've told this story before, and I never tire of telling it. I went to go see Star Wars A New Hope in 1977 with my dad, who's in the other room waiting for the hockey game with me. And he bought me a program. And at the end of the movie, when, spoilers, Darth Vader goes spinning off after the Death Star explodes, I understood that stories could continue and that it was someone's job to tell that next story. And so for me, it really was my origin story, because it was the first time that I understood that it was someone's job and purpose to tell stories that were exciting. And so for me, it was like, well, that's what I want to do. And so I thought it meant that I wanted to be a filmmaker, because it was like, oh, Star Wars is a movie. And so clearly I'm going to become a film director. And that's sort of what I made every single choice in my life to become a filmmaker. But really it was a storyteller. And so that's why I say I was born the day that I saw Star Wars, because A New Hope, because for me, it was the first understanding of what I wanted, my calling, my sort of artistic calling.
Awesome. Okay. Oh
no, you froze for a second.
Oh, we're good. Okay. So you know what, in line with that, I guess, in a 2011 essay that you wrote, titled Why I'm No Longer Sorry I Camped Out 6 Weeks for Star Wars Episode 1, I've read the essay, and you talk a lot about the different phases of life you had, your experience with the franchise from episode 1 all the way up until the prequel series, and what you sort of conclude out of at the end of that essay is that the most interesting character, the character you loved with, was not Luke, the optimistic sort of hero, not Leia, the badass, directed, the concise and strategic person, wasn't Han Solo, sort of the heartthrob, the bad boy, but it was Vader. And what I found interesting was,
it's true.
Given the time difference between when you saw the first one in 77, when the essay came out in 2011, and now, how has your feelings about Vader regarding storytelling and the fact that he is a semi-blank canvas evolved along with you as you've been a storyteller?
I mean, it is interesting. Like, I couldn't remember who I'd said. I was like, oh, did I say Chewbacca? Like, who was it, you know? But I do think it's Vader. I think that still rings really true, because I think that Vader is extremely complex and problematic. But, you know, sort of has like a full circle arc, you know. I feel like he's like the most sort of completely thought through character, even though he really has made some poor life choices.
Just a few.
But yeah, I think it, you know, yeah, it just kind of goes, Darth Vader's my daddy. Like, you know, like what can I say? But yeah, I mean, I think, you know, but I think it also morphs. You know, I think I wrote in that essay too. It's like, I think the thing about Star Wars is that it is a love-hate relationship. And I say that in the best possible way. And it's a lifelong relationship. You know, there are moments where I'm, you know, completely over it. And I'm just like, I don't care. And I actually have had to tell friends, like, please stop buying me Star Wars toys, you know? But then, like, something will happen and I'll be like, you know, oh, I love Star Wars, you know, or I don't know, you know, and it could be something as excellent as Andor, you know, where it like kind of makes you fall in love with the franchise all over again. Or it could be, you know, I remember like, you know, I was not liking Star Wars, and then like I played Knights of the Old Republic and I was like, okay, I love Star Wars again. I mean, it really is like just, you know, a wave. And I think that in the past, I thought that it was very clear, like, oh, I don't like it and I'm going to push it away and that's it, I'm over it or whatever. And now I've come to this point where I am in a lifelong relationship with Star Wars, as are many creators who Star Wars is their origin story. And so I've been really, you know, blessed to be able to contribute even in a small way to Star Wars, you know, with my novel Moving Target that I wrote with Jason Fry, and then the Star Wars hyperspace things. And yeah, so it's just kind of this, it's kind of morphed into this, you know, beautiful lifelong relationship.
Awesome. Now, a fun question I that comes to mind for me. I've watched a lot of clips about Star Wars, different people talking about it, and very specifically Sam Witwer, who is a very talented voice actor. His recommendation.
I know Sam.
Oh, wonderful. Well, one of the clips I've seen of him, he states that if you're introducing Star Wars to someone, especially a child, to introduce them to, I believe he said Clone Wars, the TV series first, the cartoon, and then get them Star Wars Episode 1, because they will have had the chance to sort of fall in love with Anakin as he's going through the war. And then Episode 1, you know, Vader killed Anakin. And from there, you can allow them to go wherever they want. Where, as a lifelong Star Wars fan, where would you say to start?
You know what? I honestly, I don't know, because I think I'm so old school that for me, it really is A New Hope. because I think that there's where you kind of like swivel backwards and forwards, you know? And I think it gives you a lot of context. And I think it gives you the sense of drama, right? If you fall in love with Anakin before he becomes Vader, then you don't hate Vader the way that you should in A New Hope. Do you know what I mean? And then you don't really understand that trilogy redemption arc, you know, in a particular way. And I think that then going back to Clone Wars, going back to episode 1, 2, and 3, that just kind of enhances your experience. But I honestly can't say because I haven't watched it any other way, right?
Oh, exactly. Like for me, I'm a baby of the 90s, so Star Wars 1, 2, episode 4, 5, and 6. Star Wars 1, 2, and 3 had already been out, you know, before I was born. So I remember watching them on VHS, and then I was fortunate enough just when I was born, when I was 11 or 12, episode 1 came out, and then I got to see those 3 in theaters. And I think you're right. Like I still tell people just watch them in the order they came out because the stories take into account how they're built.
And I mean,
I agree.
I think that goes the same way for the you know, for the cartoons as well. You know, I mean, it's like, I mean, at the end of the day, I think it doesn't matter how you find your way to Star Wars. I know a lot of, you know, I used to do read aloud at an elementary school. There were plenty of like first and third graders who'd never seen Star Wars, but they definitely knew who Darth Vader was, who Chewbacca was, who all the characters, you know, who Anakin was. Like they knew all the characters, and those were like their iconic mythological characters, even though they had never seen, they weren't allowed yet to watch those movies. And I'm sure that those kids who knew the characters before they saw the movies, no matter what they saw first, were totally fine and fell in love, you know?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Well, you touched on something there that I also wanted to talk with you about, which was read aloud. So in your intro, you mentioned the work you do in, I believe it was Amsterdam, if I'm not correct, with their animation program.
No, Denmark, Viborg.
Denmark, thank you. But you also did read aloud, or still do? Okay.
Because I'm not in LA anymore, and COVID happened. But for 20 years, I did it online during COVID. So 21 years, I was a read aloud volunteer at Mayberry Elementary School in Echo Park in Los Angeles with the same 2 teachers. Shout out to Priscilla and Peggy, and who were Miss McCarty and Miss Lou, who were like the best teachers in the world. I got assigned to them, and then we just kept this. Like I just kept showing up. Like even though the volunteer thing that I had done, it was folded. It was through the LA Times, and they stopped doing it like after 2 years. And I was just like, can I just keep coming? And so I did that, and I did a book club at the school, and I had this sort of great opportunity to have like, you know, first and third grade class. So sometimes I would have kids that would have been in my first grade class, and they'd also be in my third grade class.
Oh, wicked.
But then also sometimes I would have someone in a third grade class, and they were like, oh, my sister or my brother had you in first grade, or, you know, whatever. Anyway, it was really amazing. And the 2 teachers were incredible. And basically I would spend like a whole year reading 2 books, and we would just stop and ask questions and really dig in. So if like the book mentioned Shakespeare and a kid said, who's Shakespeare, we'd do like 2 weeks on like exploring what Shakespeare was, or like, you know, the character was listening to the opera. What's opera? Let's explore the opera. What's this part of history? I mean, it really was kind of amazing. And I was so dedicated to it that when I was temp working, I told my temp places that I would work at, I can't work on Fridays. I can only start at 10:30 a.m. on Fridays because I volunteered at an elementary school. And for some reason, everywhere was like, okay, like no problem, which I don't think is the norm. Like that's not normal, you know? So thank you to those whatever weird Hollywood corporate jobs that I had that let me take off, that let me come in late on Fridays for years.
Love it.
Yeah.
And
And it was a real joy because like I think it really cemented my love of teaching. But also it's like I don't want to be a full-time teacher because that's a lot of I mean, they are just incredible what they do, and I think I would then be that and not an artist, and I really want to be an artist. But it gave me the opportunity to really feel like I was affecting change in literacy, 40 kids at a time for 20 years, and like that just feels like I feel really proud of that accomplishment.
Oh, absolutely. And I mean, I imagine that there are, well, I suppose you could math it out, but tons of kids that you helped through that directly. And from that, I am certain you've gotten many people hooked on in being lifelong readers, and from there, who knows?
100%. I'm gonna open the door for the cat. Hold on.
Sure.
My neighbor's cat comes and visits every once in a while.
Oh, that's nice.
I can't help but love when she wants to come into my house. So, yeah, I think so. I'll tell you a story that I think is sort of sums up. There was a kid named David, and we were going on a field trip. A lot of times, this is a Title I school. A lot of parents, they worked and they couldn't like go on field trips and stuff like that. So I often was the adult that would go on field trips with the school.
Oh, right on.
And we went on a field trip once, and I got sat next to a kid who was causing trouble. And, and so I think we were going to the opera, and, the afternoon LA opera. And, and he said, oh, what is it that we're seeing? And I said, oh, I think it's The Girl with the Golden Gun. And, it's like this or whatever, and blah, blah, blah. And he said, oh, that kind of sounds like this TV show that his sister watches. And I said, oh, that's cool. But what do you like to watch, David? And David, he said, oh, well, I watch this show called Doctor Who. And I said, oh, Doctor Who? Which one is your favorite doctor? And he was like, you have heard of Doctor Who? And he was like, no one I know, no one has heard of Doctor Who. And I was like, so I talked about it. And I said, oh, you're a geek like me. I'm a geek. Cut to a couple of weeks later, and Miss Lou comes out of her classroom, or Miss Shiganaga, it was a different teacher. She comes out of her classroom, and David was kind of struggling at school. Like, he was acting up and whatever.
Oh, okay.
And she said, Miss Cecil, David wrote you a letter. And she said he spent all week writing it and rewriting it. And, and he had me in first grade and not in third grade. He was in a different third grade class than the one I was.
Oh, wow. Okay, yeah.
And he wrote me a letter saying, dear Miss Cecil, I didn't know that I was a geek, but now I know what I am. And I just wanted to thank you, for being able to tell me, that, like to share my love of Doctor Who. And because I had explained to him that being a geek was someone who was enthusiastic about things, and like really enthusiastic. And so that whole year, I, corresponded with him where I would like buy him geeky books and like, the Black Cauldron or, whatever, like sort of middle grade books, and give them to him. And then he would write me a letter about what he thought about that book. And, I had him in first grade. And so he was able to trust me on that field trip. And I think that it was helpful for him to have a definition of what he was, especially when he couldn't see anybody else around him who liked what he liked. And so it made him feel not alone. That's one story that I know of that, like, I have proof of that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But I feel like probably there are a lot of more invisible stories that I don't know about. And that makes, I always like, so when I think about that, I think, you know what? David got it. You know what I mean? Like, and he felt seen, and he felt seen through literature and geek culture and stuff like that. And I brought my enthusiasm to the classroom, I think.
I mean, I absolutely believe it. Just with the way you are with me here, If you had 20 to 30 kids to be able to tune into and share with, I'm certain you brightened their day and their lives quite a lot.
Yeah,
Now,
it was a special time.
oh yeah. Now, one thing I found interesting. So you go from read aloud, and now you're helping at the university level as a guest lecturer. Um, One of the quotes that I found from you is everyone has a story to tell, and the first step is finding your voice. Um, you've put in, not only as a writer, as a creator, as an artist, as a storyteller, your own work to make your own stories. But for 20 years, you did read aloud. You're working as a lecturer. That is a lifetime of aid and knowledge sharing to those who want to find voices. What draws you to that? Why do you pursue that so hard?
I think that being an artist is not just creating your own work, but being a good art citizen. And that means contributing to the community in some way. So whether or not that means encouraging people to tell their stories, or moderating panels, lifting other people, giving people a leg up. I just feel like that's part of your job as an artist, is to make sure that we have a really healthy ecosystem, and that it's a real diverse ecosystem. And that, it's like, if someone says to me like, oh, I think I'd like to write a story one day, I'm always like, yes, do it. Like, I don't know if they ever will, but I'm 100% gonna come to your book signing, like, when that happens, or, whatever, because it's like, why not? Just, everybody should just do it. If you want to do it, tell a story, do a thing, do it. The worst thing that can happen is that it's bad and you never do it again, right? But usually it's not, and usually it enriches you in some way. But I do think, there's literary citizenship or artistic citizenship. And I think it's just really, really important to give back to the community that we're in, and to pay attention. Who's not on the panel? Who's not there? You know what I mean? Like, who's not getting a chance? How can we make sure that more people are coming in? How can we bridge those, how can we make bridges, and how can we connect with different people? And it's like, that's kind of like what I'm into, with Europe, right? It's like, right now I'm working on a project because I met a black hole scientist when I had a residency at the Banff Center for the Arts. And he works at Rodrigo. He works in Copenhagen at the Niels Bohr Institute. And I teach, in Viborg. And I said, why don't we try to do a comic book that explains black holes? And we got a grant, and now we're doing that. So it's like, I'm always trying to, like, how can we bring people together to do lots of different interesting things, and not just artists, but scientists or historians, or whatever. It's like, how can we have a lot of different conversations? And I feel like that is your job as an artist, is to facilitate those kinds of things.
Incredible. I love that. And it's something interesting that I've come across in the indie comics community too, where I've heard many stories where the major labels in comics sometimes can be a little cutthroat, whereas almost unanimously, indie comics creators that I meet tend to be like, yeah, no, like, let's just, this thing that I'm doing, this guy does something similar. If you like what I'm doing, you'll probably like what he's doing. And then this other person, yeah, she's doing this thing. And that person over there, they're doing this. And they all tend to have that exact same mentality that you have, which is just, the rising tide lifts all boats, as opposed to, just one person benefiting.
And I think that I live in both worlds, right? I live in the licensed superhero world, or I have, and I live in the indie comics world, creator-owned comics world, and I also live in the kids comic world, and I think that kids comic world and indie comic world, like, are very, very similar. And I think that, like, superhero comics, like, is a little bit different, but it's not like there isn't people helping each other out and lifting. It's just that there are some folks, mostly men, in superhero comics who don't sort of
Yeah.
the wealth, or they don't look at a panel that they're on and say, there's no women on this panel. There's no, there's no diversity on this panel. Like, and rather than give up their seat to make sure that someone else can be there, they don't. And I think that's a bummer, and they should do better.
Well said. Well, then, I guess one thing that I do find very interesting when it comes to your own stories is a lot of the through line from them, from like across your different stories, your books, your comics, often has a lot to do with sort of finding who you are, going against perhaps peer or social norms. What event, what thing came to mind that you went, hey, this is the thing that sort of draws you to it? I
think it was just high school.
That'll do it.
It's like as basic as that, there were like the mean girls and like, me, and then like the punk rock girls, adopted me because they were like, we could have room for a new best friend. And everybody was sort of like, sort of marching to their own beat and accepting everybody that was of their own beat. And I think it's really just as simple as that,
I love it.
Yeah.
Then really quick, we have a comment from one Paul Kemp. Cecil is a fascinating storyteller in person. Thank you for hosting her on your great show, Conrad. Well, thank you, Cecil. Or sorry, thank you, Paul.
Yeah.
Thank you,
Thanks,
Cecil,
Paul.
for being here. I guess then one thing I want to touch on storytelling-wise. So as you've mentioned, you've done a lot of licensed work, a lot of your own indie comics, as well as novels. Your most recent project, I Am the Comic Book, is a pinch different.
Yeah.
So I believe, if my timing is right, you should still have one on you, correct?
Yeah, chapter 22. So This is chapter 22, and it's art by Jenny Soap, who is she lives in Sweden. She's from, I think, Scotland or England. She's from the UK. And I met her at the Swedish Comic Arts Festival in 2024 when I was a guest there, and I actually conceived of this project. But I Am the Comic Book. So this goes back to like, how can I mix comics and other art forms? How can I push the medium? How can we play? As I think as artists, as comic book people, whatever, we're all hustling for jobs, whether it's like for the big two or if it's, just like pitching books or, just it's really hard. And we don't, as artists, get a lot of opportunities to play and to be artists. And that's the joy of being an artist. And so the idea of this project is something that AI can't do. It's very human. You've seen it in person.
Yeah.
But basically what I do is I've been working with 24 different artists. I give them, it's like an exquisite corpse story. I give them a prompt. They do a 3-panel comic. I make it into a very high quality temporary tattoo. And then I publish it on my arm as a temporary tattoo, temporary tattoo. And then I document it as it disintegrates. And it's just been, so this is, like I said, this is chapter 22. I'm going to be doing 24 chapters in total. And I've had pretty amazing artists who've participated, like Allison Conway, Nate Powell, Mad Skovowski, Chris Wisnia. Here, I'm looking at I have my little.
Oh, right on. Yeah.
Hope Larson, Jose Piamenta, Scott Koblish, Teet Beach, Rachel Smith, Steens, Lisa Brown, Dean Haspiel, Diana Tamblin, Sonia Anwar, Mary Naomi, Sophie Escabas, Allison Sampson. I mean, it's just like a sort of murderer's row of like amazing artists. And I did a little Kickstarter for it so that I could pay everyone like a page rate for their comic.
Love it.
And I don't really know what I'm going to do afterwards, I mean, it would be kind of cool to like come up with like an art book or something. Or I don't really know. Like, I didn't really think of it past that, because the whole idea of it was that, like, what can we humans do to push the form, and something that is not AI, something that
Thank
is
you.
a playful kind of thing, something that everyone could kind of fit into their schedule, and that there's kind of a beauty about, sure, following along on Instagram or whatever, but also the beauty of like actually seeing it in person and being like, oh, this is a human to human experience that, like, I can see it on the internet, but if I see it in public, it's like a real, I don't know, not real, but real, kind of like human moment
Yes.
that is kind of different than whatever. And it's, I mean, I've been doing it for 2 years now. I started in May of 2024, and now it's May of 2026. And so, it's a process.
Big time. It's to me, it's a fascinating project. So one of the things that I like most about comic books, I think, is that you have your visual narrative, you have the dialogue, and then you can have a narrator. And one of the beauties of comics is those three things do not in any capacity need to be connected to convey a really interesting and dynamic story. And I've seen people take that, which is just the basis of it. That is the basics of a comic book, and do things like the project Ballyskillin, or the comic Ballyskillin, which is a wonderful project that uses AR in your phone, where if you hold it up to your phone, it'll play video clips or add motion to some of the panels.
Yeah.
In ways to, like you said, sort of push the envelope.
Yeah. I mean, that's on my agenda to do next. I would love to do an AR comic. Yeah.
Perfect. Well, I will.
Sure.
Yeah, I'll send you some links to some information, so people doing it, so maybe you can pick their brains a little.
I'm just gonna lean this way and let the cat out.
Let the cat out. Go for it. Go for it.
All right. Sorry about that.
Not at all.
Very important. I'm on cat time.
Absolutely. Hey, they run the world. We just live in it. So for I Am the Comic Book, what do you feel about it specifically is benefited by doing it on skin as opposed to a mural on walls somewhere, printed posters? What about it specifically?
I think it's the human thing. It's definitely something that AI can't do. They can't put a temporary tattoo on their body and watch it disintegrate. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's just, it's so, it's like when you see it now, right? Like, you see how it's like,
it's beginning to fade and
and it's like that decrepitude is part of the project. The deterioration of it is part of the project. And it's like, I think it's just super human. And it's intimate, like the fact that to really engage with it is to meet me and to talk to me about it. You know what I mean? Like, and I think that that's a very intimate human one-on-one thing that I'm more interested in now because of the advance of AI. Do you know what I mean? Like, I think I'm more drawn towards sort of analog things. Look, that doesn't mean that I'm not going to do a project where I do a comic book on murals, like in different cities. I mean, I'm not done, is what I'm saying. Like, different ideas that I have for how you can like sort of push the form of what is a comic and how you tell it, that I'm never going to be finished. I think one of the joys that I find about making comics is collaboration. You know what I mean? And is that I mean, unless you're a writer illustrator, but like a lot of times you're not, right? It's like two people coming together to make a story. It's like a team coming together to make a story. And I love collaboration. I love telling stories, and I love collaborating with artists to tell that story. And that's also why I liked being in a band when I was in a band, jamming and writing a song together, or like making an opera, working with a composer and like trying to come up with it. It's like, I think collaboration is one of the great, wonderful things about being an artist.
Well said. You've touched on a few things that I want to branch off into, but just to start with, as you mentioned, you made an opera. You're in a band called Nerdy Girl. One of the songs with which specifically has to do with Star Wars.
Yep.
How has your experience with music and storytelling through music and lyrics impacted how you write comics and how you do storytelling sort of at large?
I mean, I think it's a number of different things. I think, like I said, I wanted to be a filmmaker. So when I joined my band Nerdy Girl, or Bite was the first band I was in, I was in film school, and doing punk rock songs or indie rock songs was a short way of telling a story. It was a very short story in a song, and you had to be really, it was a different kind of writing than screenplay writing or whatever. And and then I became a novelist, and that's different than writing comics, and that's different than writing songs. And then I became a comic book writer, and that's different than writing a novel and different than writing songs. And I think what it does now is it allows me to ask a story what it wants to be. So I can say, oh, this story wants to be an opera, or this story wants to be a play, or this story wants to be this. And so, and then I don't have to worry about, oh, I don't have enough words in this one, or I'm not, because each genre of storytelling has its different strengths. So it's like, it's okay if it's just action and dialogue in this comic book, because one day a story is going to come to me and it's going to want to be a novel, and I can put all the descriptions, all the words in there, or all the inner thought, it's like, so it just becomes kind of a different way of approaching story, because I can ask it what it wants to be and then follow the best way to tell that story, rather than be like, I'm a comic book writer or I'm a novelist and I'm only going to tell a story in this way because it's the only way that I know how. And now it's like I'm trying to branch off into theater and, maybe musicals, which is different than theater and different than opera. And, I don't know if I'm going to become a poet, but never know, but I think that. And then I think the other thing about being in a band helped me when I became a comic book writer, because being in a band and writing a song together and jamming in a jam space where you're creating the song together and everybody has a part that they're going to put in, and you have to learn to let go to do what's best for the song, is the same thing as with comics. You're with your swim buddy, the artist, and you give them the script, and that's the scaffolding for what they need to know to do their job. And then they give it back to you, and it's sometimes totally different than what you imagined, but then you rewrite it based on thumbnails, and it's a true give and take, a true collaboration. And you have to learn how to let go of what you're precious about, because you're in a collaboration and it's the two of you. And if you don't collaborate well, then it's going to fall apart. It's not going to be good.
Yeah, good luck if half the team doesn't want to play.
Exactly.
Fascinating. Now, when it comes to the writing process, one of the things that I get a kick out of asking comic writers is, and I suppose you've kind of answered this, but I'll get a little gritty with it then.
Okay.
So normally I ask, like, how controlling and or free are you when it comes to your script? Clearly, with what you've told us, you're pretty open to interpretation. So I guess what I'll get gritty with is, when you hand over your script to your artist, do you have things laid out like page 1, panel 1, this size panel, here's what has to happen? Or are you like, hey, the minimalist of like, hey, on this page, we want to go from point A to point B, and this is the dialogue? Like, how controlled are you?
It totally depends. When you're doing a superhero comic like Batgirl, right? You don't have time to get all artsy with it. You know what I mean? It's like everybody's on deadline. Shit has to get done, So I do full script. So I'll say page 1, panel 1, panel 2, panel 3, like here's, what I think this is the biggest panel or whatever. But I always usually write or let the artists that I'm collaborating with know, this is just a scaffolding of how I think the story should be paced, so that you don't have to do all the mental heavy work of breaking it down in this way. But if you see a better way, you should do it that way. So
Right on.
that's number one. And I really have to give Jim Rugg the credit for that, because Jim Rugg and I did The Plain Janes. It was my first comic book that I'd done. I'd come from novels, and we were doing it at Minx, which was a baby imprint of Vertigo. And Shelley Bond, our amazing editor, required that I did full script. And I remember calling Jim up crying and saying, I feel stuck. Because I didn't know how to write comics. I don't know how to move from panel to panel, like the movement. You know what I mean? Because and I felt stuck in how to say panel 1, panel 2, panel 3. And Jim said, Cecil, I'm your swim buddy. You just write whatever crazy shit you want on the page, and I'll figure it out. That's my job. Your job is to. So then I started writing the scripts to him, like, okay, panel 1, Jim, here's what I'm thinking. Here's what I'm seeing. And so it became very personal in that way. And so if I'm doing a creator-owned comic, if I don't know who the artist is, or if I do know who the artist is, what I will often do is I will ask them, what kind of script would you prefer? Do you want me to do open script, or do you want me to do full script? So Shazleen Khan, who I'm doing a book with that's coming out on Little Brown, My First Monster, 2027, I asked them what kind of script they wanted, and they said, I want open script. I want to break it down. I want to do the panel pacing, So then what I did for them was I said, okay, page 1, here's the action, here's the dialogue. And sometimes I would give it 2 pages because it felt like maybe it was going to need 2 pages, but it would be like page 2, 3, here's the action, here's the dialogue. And then Shaz breaks it down the way that they want. And so
Cool.
But sometimes I don't know who the artist is, and so I may just write it open script because it's easier for me to then, if the artist is like, no, I want you to break it down. If it's open script, action and dialogue, then I can just go in and add that in.
Gotcha. Yeah.
So it really, really depends. But my feeling is that my job as the writer is to tell the story to the artist that I'm collaborating with, so that they can understand what's important, where the emotional beats are, and then we can throw out words, we can delete them. We don't need all that all that can go, but they're the ones who need all the information, and however they want to do it is fine with me, because we're going to be having conversations about it. So, yeah, does that answer your question? I do it both
Absolutely.
ways. That's basically what I'm trying to say. But I'm never controlling about it. It really always is like, here's the information. Here's what I think the pacing is. But if I say it's a 5-panel page and you think it's a splash, do that, Oh, I can't hear you. Okay. No, you're still silent.
How about now?
Okay, now you're
There we go. I love the collaborative nature of the way that you think. And it's not just like when you're writing, it's generally like you are a highly collaborative person. I find that fascinating. And to sort of ask about that, where do you think that comes from? Is there some event where you're like, in your life where you're like, crap, if I'm not collaborative, I get left behind? Or is it just someone led by example and just you saw it was like, this is the way to do it? Like, what happened? How did that
happen?
So amazing.
I mean, I could say that it's like I went to theater school, right? I went to the High School of Performing Arts, which is the Fame School. If you ever saw the original 80s movie Fame, that was my high school. And in theater, you have to work together, you know.
Oh,
I could also say that it was my godfather, my honorary godfather, Jacques d'Amboise, who was a ballet dancer who started doing teaching boys to dance in elementary schools so that they wouldn't think that it was something that sissies did. And he was just a really great role model for me on how to give back to the community and how to, you know, collaborate in that way. And he was
yeah.
pulling in like painters and, you know, actors and, you know, to sort of dance with the kids and stuff. But I think there was some point in my life where, I mean, maybe it was, I read like, you know, Henry Miller and like Anais Nin and like the, you know, Paris, you know, bohemian life or whatever. And I just thought, all I want to do when I grow up is make art, do cool projects with cool people, and stuff my eyeballs with other art, you know? And so it really is just like, you don't get to do that if you don't play well with others, you know?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, the ways that I've seen artists, even just locally here in Toronto, like seemingly out of nowhere, from meeting each other to all of a sudden go, oh, hey, I kind of like the way you do this. What do you think about this little thing? I'm trying to figure this out. And all of a sudden, they're like, oh, you could do it this way. And just from being open, having a couple comments, a couple nice things to say, a couple of critical things, but like helpful. All of a sudden, there's, oh, do you want to do a book together? Do you want to make this thing? And out of nowhere, boom, new art project happens. And
Yeah.
yeah,
I mean, there's nothing better
gorgeous.
than that. And also it's like, look, I was talking about this with a friend today. It's like, I have like 50 ideas about cool fucking projects that I could do, but I don't have any money, you know? And I just like, I'm like, why? I just need to be rich so that I can just facilitate like so many cool, like instigate so many cool art things, you know? And that's my big sadness is that I don't have the
Yes.
money to do all the projects that I want to do that would fairly pay everyone to be able to come and play and do just cool stuff, you know? So, and it's not just comics, it's like everything, you know,
Oh,
everything,
yeah.
you know? But yeah, I just think that I don't think there's a point to being an artist unless you're engaging with other cool ideas, and if you're not cross collaborating with other art forms, you know, like being multidisciplinary in a way. And all I know how to do really is have a lot of cool ideas and tell a story. So I am, you know, I mean, sure, I could write a book, you know, but like, I mean, the things that I think are really fun are the things where it's like, it engages the most people. And so I'm dependent on my collaborators, you know, to be able to do weird, cool things. Thank gosh, everybody, you know, played with me with this.
Absolutely. Now, one of the things that I wanted to ask about I in the comic book, regarding how you work with scripts and everything. For that project specifically, I can't imagine it functioning the same way as a comic when you have a full
No.
script.
It was basically an exquisite corpse story. So what would happen is I gave a prompt to the first artist. They did a 3-panel comic, and then I wrote the next prompt based on their piece of art.
Oh, and you just kind of
Yeah.
Oh,
so it's really
that's
kind
so
of
cool.
like not only a conversation with me and the artist, but it's also a conversation between the artist before and the artist after, if that makes any sense.
Yeah.
So, and it's always surprising. It's like what, you know, it's like I had said space whale, and, you know, Allison Sampson drew an actual whale. And so then Jenny is like, okay, here's a space whale, you know, it's like a space whale. But I don't know what's gonna show up, you know, and so you just kind of have to I think that's the fun of it. Then it's really like
Mhm.
the, that surrealist, exquisite corpse thing where it's like a fractured story that like somebody draws the head, somebody draws the neck, somebody draws the torso, somebody draws the belly, somebody draws the legs, somebody draws the feet, and then you get this sort of weird, sort of Franken image.
Yeah.
I think that's what my goal was for this, for this comic.
Beauty. Well, it seems to have been working. You've been at it you've been putting it on you for 2 years.
2 years. Yeah.
You have 2 months left.
Yeah.
As you're nearing the end of a project like this, what are you feeling?
It's interesting because, first of all, it's an endurance performance art piece. So there were a couple of things that happened. I was in Sweden, in Stockholm at the Saratekat Comics Art Festival. I was a guest there and having some conversations with a beer one night with some artists, who I can't remember who they were, but I was like, it would be cool if I could put a comic on my body or whatever. And then I thought, okay, maybe I should do that. But also that was inspired because when I was in Sweden, there was a big exhibit at the Modern Art Museum on Laurie Anderson. It was a retrospective of Laurie Anderson's career. And she did all these weird performance art sort of performance endurance pieces and stuff like that. And then I went to London right after Sweden and went to the Academy of Arts or whatever, and they were having an exhibit on Marina Abramovich, who's also a performance artist, endurance performance artist, whatever. And I just kind of thought, like, I feel like my final form as like an artist, like when I become an elder artist, will be like strange lady who does weird things, arty, performance, whatever. I mean, when you look at the Plain Janes, I mean, basically it's like my wish, please, could I be a conceptual artist in some way? Like that's what I want to be. And so I think, so it's been a real joy to do because it's that, but also it's taught me a lot about like endurance art and the sort of practice of like keeping up with it. And, that it's like, it's a habit that like every few weeks I have, I give my skin a break for like a week or two, but every few weeks I have this weird sort of tattoo on my arm that like when it's first fresh and looks real, people just think I have a weird big tattoo. But then when it looks like this and it's like kind of falling apart, I can see people at like the cafe or whatever, and they're like, ugh, like, wow, that's a terrible tattoo that girl had. And when I see their eyes like that, I say, oh, I see you noticing this. Can I tell you about my project? And then I tell them and they're like, oh my God, that's super cool. But so I feel like I'm going to mourn the practice, because it's for 2 years, it's been a part of my day-to-day life to have this art piece that I talk about. But I really, want to give a nod to, Laurie Anderson and Marina Abramovich, who really inspired me to make something happen for myself. And like I said, I'm not done. There are going to be other things. I don't know what they are, but
I hope so. Absolutely. I think you will. We've got 4 minutes left. Okay, two quick questions. With I Am the Comic Book, how many people do you think you've talked to about the project just through an interaction, just like you mentioned, where someone sees it and you go, hey, check this thing out that I'm doing. I see you're checking it out. If you had to guess.
I mean, I would say definitely a couple of hundred.
Couple of hundred.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Definitely a couple of hundred. And what I really like is that sometimes I'll see someone, either they've been following me on, on the project, or they donated it to it, or they know about it, or they've seen me before, and they'll grab my arm and say, let me see, show me your arm, and I love that, because that is very exciting that they're like, like you, right? Like when you saw one and then you saw a different one, and and maybe you'll see this one deteriorated at TCAF. So yeah, but I would definitely say it's a couple of hundred people. I think, like maybe not more than 200, but like, you know, with like the people in cafes who look at me strangely, or, you know, people whenever I'm at a Comic-Con and I, you know, I say I'm wearing this, or, you know,
Hmm.
yeah.
Well, I have noticed that every time I've seen you at a Comic-Con, you are in a T-shirt, at least in the last 2 years that I've seen you, which is perfect for what you're doing. So yes, we have 3 minutes to go because I want to get you to that game on time.
Hockey.
Yes.
Go Habs, go Habs.
Cecil, just to start, one of my last two questions I will ask is the important one. How can people follow you? What is the best way for them to support you in your current projects?
I mean, the best way to support any artist is to talk about them, signal boost them, borrow their books from the library, buy their books when you can, you know, that stuff. If you want to find me on the internet, cecilcastellucci.com, or on Instagram, Cecil Seaskull, which was my punk name, Miss Cecil on Blue Sky, and I Am the Comic Book on Instagram. Those are the best ways. And then, you know, as for anything else, it's just the, you know, just word of mouth is like the most powerful thing for artists.
Love it. And my last question for you for tonight is simply going to be, what have you been reading lately?
What is my, this is the question that's really difficult. Okay, so I was standing next to Sweeney Boo at MCAF, and I swapped a Plain Jane's for her book, Over My Dead Body. So I'm going to say that. But I feel like the big book that I really loved was Mimi Pond has a book about the Mitford sisters that recently came out. That was just incredible. It's like, what is it called? Mimi Pond. Do Admit, The Mitford Sisters and Me by Mimi Pond. I mean, and it's just gorgeous. Look at this. You know, it's just Mimi Pond beauty. So yeah, so that's what it's Do Admit. Here's the cover. Oh no, that's not it. Except Do Admit, The Mitford Sisters and Me.
Yeah.
And I just think it's really fascinating because if you don't know about the Mitford sisters, they were these sort of sisters. Nancy Mitford was a huge, famous novelist, but like one of the sisters was like in love with Hitler and like got shot in the head, and then the other one was like a labor union. I mean, they were just so diverse. I mean, it's the craziest story in the world. These four sisters, and they were radical. They were very different, and they were rich, and sort of at the turn of, you know, the last century, and like World War I, World War II. Really, really, really interesting. And Mimi Pond sort of does this biography of those sisters, and it's absolutely stunning.
Right on. Well,
and it's nominated for an Eisner, so you should vote for it too.
Well, there you go. Go vote at the Eisners, people. Do Admit, The Mitford Sisters and Me by Mimi Pond.
Yeah.
Well, Cecil, absolutely. Thank you so much for taking the time to be on the show tonight. I had a blast.
Me too. Thank you.
For sure. And to the folks on YouTube land, Cecil said earlier, go follow them at I Am the Comic Book for their comic book project. Cecil Seaskull, Seaskull, on Instagram and elsewhere online, or
Miss Cecil
at
Blue Sky.
Perfect. And like, comment, subscribe for more, and we will see you next time.
Thanks a lot.